Today we're going to look at how to use readings to find answers. And not only just to find answers, but how to use actual details from the reading and to quote those details accurately in order to prove that what we're saying is true. So we're going to look at two questions that you guys wrote in your notebooks. What did Europeans get from North and South America? And what effects did Europeans have on Native America? So I'm looking for two things: what Europeans got and the effects that Europeans had on Native Americans already living in North and South America. So let's start by reading this together. We're going to start at the first paragraph here. The French came to America and began to trade with Native American called Hurons. So believe it or not, there's actually a lot of information right in that first sentence that we don't just want to skip over. The French came to America. So the French are Europeans. They're from Europe. France is a country in Europe. And they began to trade with Native Americans called Hurons. So that means Hurons are the name of Native Americans. So we have the French, who are Europeans, and we have the Hurons, who are Native Americans. Let's continue. Huron leaders learned how to use a trade network to get fur from other Native Americans in Canada and then trade the fur to the French. So the Hurons are getting fur and trading the fur to the French. Okay, let's read a little bit further. The Hurons became agents, meaning they did the actual trading with the French for all the other natives in their area. So they did the trading. So the Hurons are the one who are trading, not just for themselves, but for other natives, according to what that says, according to this detail. Okay, so what did they do? The Hurons got fur from other native tribes. Then they took the furs to cities in Canada to trade with the French for European goods. So the Hurons take furs and they give the furs to the French. The Hurons took home guns, kettles, and metal tools. They brought these things back to the natives and got more beaver fur. So according to this, they are giving furs to the French, and then they take home, so they're getting guns, kettles, and metal tools. All right, I think I have some stuff to answer my first question. I think I can safely say that one of the things that the Europeans are getting from North and South America is fur. So in my notebook, underneath that question, I would want to write, they are getting fur from America. Okay? Why don't you go ahead and do that now? I should probably tell you to pause it. Okay, hopefully you're done and you have unpaused it. Now, it's not just enough to say what we know. We need to also write down a detail from the reading or fact from the reading that shows we know where we got our information from. And there's actually two places. One of those places is up here. Right in the beginning, it tells us that this is going to be about trading. So they use a trade network to get fur, and there's also another place. We could also use a detail down here. Okay, so there's a sentence there, or there's a sentence above that you can use. So there's two places you could write. You could use the detail that's here, or you could use the detail that's here to prove that what you're saying is accurate. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to pause the video right now and write down one of those two details in your notebooks. Okay, so let's keep reading together now that you're done with that. And we are going to go down to this paragraph. Pretty soon, another Native American group, the Iroquois, began to trade the same way as the Hurons. So that means that another Native American group, another American group, the Iroquois. So now we have two groups of Native Americans, and they're doing the same thing. So that must mean they're going to get furs and they're trading them. But it says here they traded with the Dutch. So the Iroquois trade with the Dutch. So the Dutch are also Europeans. Then it's going to give us a little Dutch history. The Dutch had been building settlements after 1609 near the Hudson River in New York. The capital of the Dutch colony is where New York City is today. the Dutch colony became the center for trade in North America and around the world. Wow. Good information there, but nothing about what they got except for furs, but we already know that they got furs. The Hurons and Iroquois soon argued over who got to trade with the French and the Dutch. The two Native American groups began to fight for control of the fur trade. Control of the trade would give the winner power over other Indian peoples. Hey, wait a minute. My second question asked about effects. An effect is something that happens. So it said, what effect did Europeans have on Native Americans? Well, it sounds like they caused Native Americans to fight. So under your second question, I would write that down in your notebook. Go ahead and pause and do that now. Now we need a detail that proves that they caused them to fight. And that detail is going to be right here. So the two Native American groups began to fight for control of the fur trade. Go ahead and write that detail into your notebooks. Make sure you pause the video. Unpause when you're done. Okay, let's continue reading. The fighting made both the Hurons and the Iroquois weaker and weaker. The Europeans did nothing to stop the fighting, and sometimes they even tried to keep it going. In time, the Europeans were able to take away the land with all its furs. So again, it's still talking about how Europeans got furs and how it caused the natives to fight. There's no new information in there, but it gives us a little bit more information about what's happening. And eventually they're going to take away their land. Okay? The trade and the wars that went with it changed the way of lives of the Native Americans. When something changes, that sounds like an effect. The more they wanted European goods, the less they lived the way they grew up with. They changed the ways in which they farmed, hunted, cooked, and even dressed. So what I would say is that this is an effect for that second question. What effect did the Europeans have? They changed the natives' way of life. How do I know that? Because it says it right here. They changed the ways in which they farmed, hunted, cooked, and even dressed. So that would be another detail that you'd want to write down for your second question. Okay, we're going to finish reading this together. We're almost done. Many stopped using the skills that had helped them live in the woodlands. Instead, they spent their time hunting for furs and fighting each other over the trade with the Europeans.